Hi, this is Oscar Madrigal, the chair of the South Pasadena PTA Council Special Needs Committee. I'm here doing our candidate interviews with Dr. Suzie Abajian. Suzie, thank you for being with us, and I want to give you the chance to go ahead and start with any opening remarks.
Well, thank you for having me. It's great to be here with you. Um, just a little bit about me. I've been, as you know, I've been serving on the South Pasadena School Board for the past 5 years. I was elected in 2015, and since my election, I've been a strong supporter of expanding programming in science, technology, engineering, mathematics, arts, and dual language immersion to make sure that all of our students have something that they want to be engaged in school. Um, I have also taken the lead in pushing for the multicultural literature course at the high school to engage students in culturally responsive and linguistically responsive LGBTQ positive and inclusive education. And also I've continually advocated for the closing of the opportunity gap for underserved students. I'm a lifelong educator. I have K through 12 experience as well as college and graduate levels. I've taught at UCLA, LMU, and Occidental College. I have a PhD in education from UCLA. I'm the only candidate, I think, who's taught in South Pasadena schools. So I bring an important perspective to the board and understand how things work at the ground level. And as our district is currently faced with unprecedented challenges with COVID and school funding, I believe that we need a sure and proven leader like myself who's going to put the safety and social emotional well-being of our students and staff first, and who's going to ensure that we continue to offer quality education to all of our students. And for all of these reasons, I'm running, and I hope that I have your vote. Thank you.
Thank you. South Pasadena will have to build a lot more housing in the next few years. Right now, our school system is at capacity. What do you plan to try to do to plan for the potential new students and current overcrowding?
Well, that's a great question. We have been actively monitoring new building projects in the city to see if we have an increased demand in terms of students, increased amount of students coming to our district. Um, the interesting thing is that over the past 5 years, we've had a pretty steady enrollment. So we haven't had any large increases and any significant increases in enrollment. However, this year we had 160 students below our normal enrollment. So I think that's probably due to COVID. Either way, we are monitoring the situation, and also we have, if we need to, we have an additional site, the Anianta site, that we can always turn into a new elementary school. We have a lot of students who come to our district via permits. And so we can limit the amount of permits. If we have overcrowding, we can start there and then really think whether we should utilize the Anianta site for an additional elementary school. And of course, then we would have to think about how we can build up our middle and high school to address the needs of our community.
Thank you. As the number of students with the highest learning needs in special education increases, what can you do to ensure that our district is equipped to best serve them?
We can do a number of things. We can ensure that we recruit and maintain high quality staff in special education. That's one thing we could do. We could advocate for increased funding for special education, and that's something that I've actually been doing. I have an elected position on the California School Board Association Delegate Assembly, and we have taken a few significant issues in California, and one of them being special education funding. And so we have been lobbying the state legislature to increase education funding for special education, but also just in general to increase funding for our schools.
Thank you. How would you work to ensure board and school-based decisions are transparent?
Our board decisions are transparent because, unlike charter schools, our boards are have to abide by the Brown Act. So, because of the Brown Act, we have to make sure that we post our agendas within a certain time period. We have to make sure that we have public meetings that the public knows about and could come and comment at. Um, uh, we have to make sure that we're not meeting with other board members when it's not announced to the public, et cetera. There are all these mechanisms to ensure board transparency. But we also have oversight committees. For example, we have a bond oversight committee. We have a parcel tax oversight committee to ensure that the monies that we're receiving from the public are used in the way that they were intended to be used. And we have that. We also are available to the public. I am open to receiving feedback from the public, communication from anyone really who wants to discuss with me whatever issues that they want to regarding the district. So I'm available, I'm accessible. I think those are all different ways that we can ensure openness, transparency, and accountability.
Thank you. How should the district best focus on pre-kindergarten populations in our community to promote school readiness? What knowledge do you bring regarding child development?
Unfortunately, our district doesn't receive funding to address the needs of pre-kindergarten students. However, we can definitely promote literacy at a young age. I think that has shown that it enables students to be ready for school. In terms of my background, I am an educator of 20 some years. I have a PhD in education. So that's the knowledge and experience I bring. Again, I've taught in K through 12. I'm currently an administrator at the Orange County Office of Education, and I work with the Title III program there, which is the English Language Learner Program. So I have extensive experience in the field.
Thank you. How do you plan to hold the district accountable in improving outcomes for students? What data elements would you focus on?
Well, that's a great question. Again, I think in previous years, school districts were compared to each other based on test scores. But the great thing is that California has a new system of making school processes transparent to the public, and also looking at different ways of evaluating a school district. So the dashboard, the California dashboard, looks at chronic absenteeism, suspension rates, how our English language learners are doing. We look at the Smarter Balance test. They have that included in the dashboard. And then school climate surveys, graduation rates. So it's really, it's a comprehensive way of looking at our district and our schools, and looking at how we're doing in all of these areas, not just in testing. So that's something that we look at every year to ensure that we are making adequate progress, and to make sure that we're addressing any I don't like to say achievement gaps, because the word achievement gap places the responsibility of achievement or of the gap on the student, but opportunity gaps. So that's something that I've been pushing our staff to look at ways in which we can close the opportunity gaps for our underserved students, including English language learners, special education students, and our underserved student populations.
Thank you. Inclusion of special education students into mainstream classrooms has shown to have positive benefits for all students. How will you advocate for inclusion and support our administrators and teachers to create effective opportunities for inclusion?
Well, I think that having a least restrictive environment for our special education students is essential for them to be mainstreamed and to be able to have access to the curriculum. So I think that's one of the main tenets of special education and IEPs. So that's the way that we can ensure is make sure that we are following through with our IEPs, that our administrators follow through and make sure that our teachers are providing the accommodations that our special education students need.
Thank you. As students in special education begin high school, planning for their transition into adulthood becomes a responsibility of the school as part of their IEP.
Mhm.
How would you support our district staff and teachers in creating and implementing effective transition programs for our students?
We currently have a workability program for students and individual student transition plans facilitated through the transition specialist. So that's something that we already do provide for our students. And of course, I think classroom practices also enable students to be better prepared for life after high school. And so those are things that we already implement in our schools.
Thank you. Having a solid multi-tiered system of support, or MTSS, can ensure that we support our students who are falling behind, for example, our EL populations. How will you as a board member ensure that our instructional focus includes the development of a strong MTSS?
We currently do have a strong MTSS program, a three-tiered program of support. So our initial tier addresses the majority of students, 80% of our students. So that supports in terms of differentiation. It's broad supports for a large number of students. And then we have tier two supports that's more focused supports for targeted student populations that are more, again, I don't like the term at risk because that, that I rather say our students who have potential to achieve. So there is a more focused system of supports for those students and specific interventions at the second level that meets 15% of our student population. And then we have a third tier of support that's more focused on students who are really struggling, and that usually that targeted support and counseling, et cetera, is for usually it's for 5% of our student population. So we do have multiple tiers of support for our student populations to ensure that we are giving them all the support that they need so they don't fall through the cracks and they're not left behind.
Thank you. The state of California has adopted social emotional learning competencies for all schools. What policies would you support or create to ensure that our school district is meeting these competencies?
I'm glad you asked that question because I've been pushing our district to implement different programs. Of course, we currently have PBIS, Second Step, and mindfulness activities. But one thing that I was part of the a group of school boards, and we used to share, it's the Five Star Coalition, we used to share ideas about how we're dealing with different issues that our students face. So one of the things that I learned from our partner districts was that was about the Challenge Success Program and how the Challenge Success Program enables our school communities to redefine success in multiple ways, so that students can see themselves successful. If they're struggling in one area, they can still be successful and gain confidence in other areas. So that's something that I've advocated for and brought since I've gotten on the board.
Thank you. Given that South Pasadena receives far less in per pupil spending than neighboring districts
Mhm.
due to state formulas, what approaches would you advise to maximize revenue to meet district needs?
So the great thing about our district is that yes, yes, we're severely underfunded in California, and our district doesn't receive as many Title I monies as other districts or Title III monies because we don't have a large EL population or immigrant student population. So I think the great thing about our district is that we do receive additional funds via the SPEF donation, via the parcel tax, via PTA donations. And we do have some additional revenue streams like the tapings at the district office. So we've always looked at diversifying our revenues, but really the real way of fixing school funding is at the state level. So if people are interested in changing school funding so that we're not always struggling and we're not always asking for donations, is to really change the funding formula. And as a lot of you know, Prop 13 is what put us in this situation from the 70s. And so today we have the opportunity to reverse some of the damage done by Prop 13, which was meant to just keep seniors in their own homes and not displace them, but then corporations took advantage of loopholes, and that's why we're in this situation, because they're not paying their fair share of property taxes. So Prop 15 is on the ballot, and we have that chance today to reverse some of that damage done by Prop 13. And it's a split rule. It addresses large corporations, not small businesses. So we can vote yes on Prop 15, but also I've been working through CSBA, the California School Board Association, to put another ballot measure that's going to come on in 2022. That is essentially a billionaire tax that would actually give us a lot more funding than Prop 15. So look out for that on the 2022 ballot. Thank you.
Thank you. What is your position on continuing dual immersion programs into the middle school or high school, especially with current funding challenges? How would you speak to parents who are concerned about continuing or eliminating these programs? And how do you support equity in language learning opportunities for students that can't enroll into the dual immersion programs?
Again, great question. I have to say that I've been one of the strongest proponents of dual language immersion because I think that our students have to be multilingual. We have to celebrate multilingualism. I was a product of a DI program as well. It wasn't a traditional DI program in the sense that all the subjects were taught in two languages. But again, I benefited from a DI program, and that's how I used to be an English language learner, and I became fluent in English in a DI program. And so I know the value of DI programs, and I've been advocating for the expansion of the DI programs. However, we have some challenges, especially at the higher levels, because there are a number of challenges. One is staffing challenges. There are not a lot of teachers who are able to teach the curriculum at the secondary level in two different languages. So that's one of the difficulties, is finding staffing. Another difficulty is finding the curriculum. A lot of teachers at the secondary level have to make their own curriculum. Also, we have funding issues, like you said. And so we have to, especially now that we have less funding, we have reduced funding, we have to really look at, in the past 5 years, we've added 40 plus educational and extracurricular programs. Maybe we have to take a look at those programs and see which ones we would like to trade off, and instead of those, maybe continue. If that's what parents want, if that's what the community wants, we can do that through the LCAP process every year, the local control accountability plan process. So there are different things that we can do, but we have to unfortunately work within the limitations of funding. And I agree that we should offer all of our students language acquisition programs, whether it's DI programs or other programs that don't necessitate having students enrolled from kindergarten to fifth grade. And so I would like to look at different ways of increasing language offerings in K through 12. I'm a strong proponent of that, and if we had the funding, I will be all for it. And even if we don't have the funding, we can always find creative ways of implementing it. I really believe that, but it takes time and it takes collaboration with our labor partners, and So it's a process. It can't happen overnight.
Thank you. Thank you. So the number of students with active IEPs in South Pasadena Unified has increased in the past couple of years. How will you address the funding challenges that this will bring to our district?
Again, I think this is similar to the other questions. I have been advocating for the expansion of special education funding for our district via my involvement in the California School Board Association and via advocating with the state legislature to increase special education funding. I think really that's the way that we can continue to do that. And again, our general fund contribution to SPED is right now at 60% of the total expenses. So, but we need more dollars because the need is greater. And also, I think that the state should fund the mandates that they have put in place. It should be funded mandates, and they shouldn't just say, okay, here are the special education laws, and now you just have to figure out how to fund it yourself. That's really problematic, I think. So we've been trying to advocate at the state level to get more funding.
Thank you. So this next question has a statement and then has two-part question. I'll read the statement and information, and I'll let you answer each one as it comes. Included in the South Pasadena Unified Mission is a commitment to recognizing and valuing the diversity, backgrounds, and abilities of all students, and to providing them the encouragement to reach their full potential. So the first question is, according to EdSource data that is from the 2019 California Smarter Balance test results, they indicate that achievement gaps exist by race and ethnicity and income levels in our district. What is your plan to address these gaps?
Well, it's funny that you bring the mission and vision of our district up because I actually changed the mission and vision. I insisted that we change it to include that language. It did not have it before I got on the board. So I'm responsible for that. So I think that was the first step, is to put that as our priority, to make sure that we address all of our students, to make sure that we have an inclusive educational environment for all of our students. So I'm responsible for that. And so in terms of, providing culturally responsive instruction and also atmosphere in our schools, I think I've been really pushing for that. And that's why we have the multicultural literature class at the high school level, because that was a long process where I had to convince the board that this was a great idea. And then follow through and make sure that we implement this, because I really believe that when students see themselves reflected in the curriculum, that they're more connected to schooling and they achieve at higher levels. In terms of the opportunity gap, you're right. We have an opportunity gap, and we've had that since the beginning, and that's true for every school district. It's not just us, it's true for every single school district. And what I've been doing is every year I've been saying, challenging our administrators to find ways of addressing those opportunity gaps, of creating more inclusive environments for our students. And I have to say that we've made some headways in most of our schools. We have made headways in closing that opportunity gap, but we have still a long ways to go. And I'm committed to continuing to push for closing of that gap.
Thank you. The second part of the question is, how will you help to increase teacher diversity in all schools? What can you do to make our district more diversified and reflect the diversity of our community and county?
Again, I feel that, this is something that's been very important to me. I believe that our students need to see themselves reflected not only in the curriculum, but in the school leadership. And that's one of the reasons why I ran, because I'm an immigrant and I'm an English language learner. English is my third language. And I come from a minoritized community. So and also I'm a renter. I'm the only elected in our city who's a renter currently. So, but it's funny because over 50% of our residents are renters. So, so just running contributes to that diversity. Having electeds who are people of color, who are women, I think that's really important. I think, and as you're there as a leader, then you can have those conversations with the leadership, with the superintendent, and say, how are we making sure that we're hiring a diverse teaching group? And so those are things that board members, those are conversations that board members can have with district leadership and push them in that direction. Thank you.
Thank you. When a school district purchases curriculum or programming such as Second Step, how does the board ensure that they are receiving accurate information and holding school administration accountable for the implementation of these programs?
At every board meeting, we have a curriculum and instruction update from Ms. Gervais, who's the assistant superintendent of curriculum and instruction. And she briefs us every month on how we are progressing in implementing different educational programs. If we have a new program, we make sure that we provide our staff with training on the new program. When we had to implement the Smarter Balanced Science standards, we had our faculty teachers receiving training in implementing those programs. When it was, the new mathematics program, we did the same thing. So I think that's one way. Another way is to make sure that when we select a curriculum, we go through a collaborative process with teachers and others to pilot the different programs, to look into what works best for our district, and to have that teacher buy-in. It's really important to have teachers buy into what we're adopting, the curriculum adoption, so that they're more invested in it and they will be able to implement it in a more effective way.
Thank you. So we want to give you the opportunity, now that we have our closing, are there any questions that we have not asked you that you would like to address? Or do you have any closing remarks that you would like to state at this time?
I just want to say that I am running because I deeply care about our students, and I deeply care. I'm a young mother. I'm a working mother. I'm not a young, I'm old, but I'm a new mother, and I'm a working person. And it's not easy to be someone like me and be on the school board, but because it's such a big commitment. But I love doing what I do. And I love advocating for our students, especially our underserved students, especially our special education and English language learner students, because I feel that they need an extra layer of advocacy. And that's what I've been doing my entire time on the board. If you want to look at the previous board meetings, I'm sure you can see the way that I advocate for our students. And I think that particularly now that we're in the midst of COVID, I think stakes are much higher for our students, especially for our special education students, for our English language learners. The stakes are really high. And I believe that we need to have someone who understands education, who has built those relationships over many years with our local county and district partners and state partners, and who will be able to continue to advocate in that capacity. You don't build those relationships overnight, but over a long period of time. And that's what I've been doing over the past 5 years. So those are the reasons I'm running. And I hope that I have my community's vote. If I do, then I'd be glad to continue serving for the next 4 years. And again, I am accessible. If anyone would like to have conversations with me, I'm always glad to call people back. I've always been responsive to community members. So I welcome any input that people have. Please visit my website at SuzieAbajian.com. Thank you.
Thank you.